boy, for once, one of these NASCAR drivers was not all talk. He said, I am going to back my words up. And the right hook from Mississippi all the way to Carolina woo, man, man.
Yeah, literally just a one piece, no biscuit really. I mean, he didn't follow it up with anything, but I mean, I'll say this. I'm with Dale Jr., who tweeted after the race, we need to cement in all of the tunnels that allow these drivers to leave the racetrack, because at this point, I want nothing but, hell, put a hell in a cell around the track every time NASCAR comes to town. Because at this point, if this is the type of stuff
Lock
we're
the
going to
doors
get,
behind him. Lock the doors behind him.
amen. I mean, look, this was one of the most interesting. Like we said, this was one of the most interesting things we've had happen in this sport post race in a very long time. And the way that Ricky Stenhouse, I thought it was very kind of corny at first when he was like, "Oh, I'm going to have Richard Childress hold my watch," because the whole history there. But boy, oh boy, did he back it up! And not only that, he brought his family with him, Bob.
Well, you see this guy come in after they've been split up, holding on to Kyle Busch. I think he was trying to just keep Kyle Busch off of him, but when they saw somebody from Ricky Stenhouse's camp on Kyle Busch, they went at him, and it turned out to be Ricky Stenhouse Sr., Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s dad. So it really was all in the family at North Wilkesboro. True throwback feel in the garage there, and you even had Kyle Busch chirping back at him. Ricky was like, "I'm gonna wreck you." Charlie goes, "Congrats, good. We suck too." Like, it was just a very weird scene all around.
Yeah, it's always good to see. I don't know his name, but the black gentleman who was in charge of breaking up all fights in NASCAR, good to see him. But also kind of weird because when he tackled Ricky Stenhouse, he was like, "Hey, go get my dad." And I was like, wait, that's a very weird thing to say after you just punched somebody in the face.
When you see that guy that you just mentioned in the background, I remember the Noah Gragson Ross Chastain incident in Kansas last year. And before Noah Gragson could even respond with a punch of his own, that man was in the middle of it. So when you see him on the TV in a post-race incident, get ready, because there's a potential for fireworks to happen. And you had Joe Logano doing his winning interview on the front stretch there, and all these fireworks were going off. You could barely hear them. Little did we know the fireworks that were going to be going on in the infield.
Yeah, it's, dude, like you said, the right hand from absolute hell. I mean, it looked like they were actually going to walk away kind of peacefully, and then Ricky just decided, you know what? I've sat here this long. I may as well get my money's worth. Here's a right cross. See what happens. I mean, and then the way I thought it was interesting that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starts the fight, and then Ricky Stenhouse Sr. had to eat 3 or 4 from Kyle Busch because of it. And then obviously, I mean, the pit crews did a heck of a job. And God, shout out to Kyle Busch's team for defending the truck, man. I mean, you get the fuck off of this truck right now. You get the fuck out of here, dude. Hey, get off my lawn vibes. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Again, for 2024 NASCAR, we are having week after week where we have some kind of moment where we just circle and go, man, we're really doing okay right now. And again, you're coming into North Wilkesboro in the All-Star race. There's a lot of different storylines on the table, like we said in this intro, whether it's Kyle Larson, all these new tires, just the fact that we're at North Wilkesboro. We can't take that for granted because a few years ago, this track had weeds growing up through it. And now you've got Ricky Stenhouse going at Kyle Busch. Now, to go back to the actual incident on there, am I wrong to say that, especially early on in the race on a restart like that or on the green flag start, you got to be aggressive? Ricky Stenhouse didn't do anything wrong there. I don't really know what Kyle Busch was thinking there to retaliate like that, except for, I guess it's Kyle Busch.
Okay, I'm going to put my lawyer hat on, which is something I rarely do in this, on this podcast, because I like to leave it at home because nobody likes me because of it. But it was a little early for it, especially in an all-star race. I just think, I get where Kyle Busch was coming from. And mind you, I'm just making the other side of the argument here. But I get where Kyle Busch was coming from because he throws it in there 3 wide. I understand the sense of urgency to need to get track position and stuff like that. I just think from Kyle Busch's perspective, and oddly enough, I think this is part of the reason why Kyle Busch is struggling in NASCAR this year. He is used to that old style of racing to where guys just do not make aggressive moves like that, especially that early in the race. So I think Kyle Busch thought, okay, it's way too early to be doing stuff like that. But I think the way that NASCAR is going, these are the moves you have to expect every single lap. There is no lap off. And, like you said, I just think Kyle Busch was almost expecting that not to happen and was angry that it did, but there was nothing wrong with it.
And I'm glad you said that, because I'll piggyback off of that. Kyle Busch, for all the reputation he got for being a hothead and this aggressive driver, you've seen the clips of him, wrecking in Truck Series and all that, going after guys. Really, he's one of the more respectful drivers on the track as far as the Cup Series level in 2024. Gives the guys a lot of respect as a veteran driver, especially guys like Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson have gone out emphatically and said, Kyle's one of the guys that I can race clean around and you can get it back. It's respectful. And I get that, where you said he gets it in return, but someone like Ricky Stenhouse, who is honestly, to be quite frank, lucky to even be in the All-Star race because of winning last year, is taking the moment with, he's on those fresh new compound tires on a restart or on the green flag start there. At the end of the day, one, it's an All-Star race, so what's it really worth it for Kyle Busch there? But two, I mean, is it really that bad of a move? I mean, if Kyle Busch had done it to Ricky Stenhouse, I don't think Ricky Stenhouse would have tagged Kyle Busch in the wall. And if he did, oh my goodness, can you imagine the absolute meltdown that Kyle Busch and RCR would have had at JTD Doherty? I mean, I'm just looking at this, I guess, if the roles were reversed here. And I know that's not how this works, but I guess, like you said, for Kyle Busch, who is so respectful of other drivers, it was an incident, and he tagged the wall, but he bounced right off it, and it looked like he was okay. It's hard to say, but like you said, it was so early on the race to go ahead and just send it like that and torpedo Ricky Stenhouse. I just didn't love it, especially from someone like Kyle Busch.
I agree. I think you just have to look at the whole picture of, Kyle Busch hasn't had the best year. They're obviously struggling for momentum over at RCR. And this just seems like one of those moves where it's like, are you fucking kidding me? On lap 2, this is what we're going to do? And it just seemed like the wires crossed as soon as he hit the wall, the wires crossed, and you knew something was going to happen. I don't think the punishment fit the crime in this instance. I think you give him a shot. I don't think you ruin his day. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's Kyle Busch. I mean, this is vintage Kyle Busch, wires crossing. We've seen it multiple times, like you said, in the Truck Series, in a lot of different instances. It just has been so long since we've seen it. We almost wondered if, maybe fatherhood kind of took this out of him. But no, it did not. I mean, message sent, to say the least. He's going to come after you if he feels like he's wrong.
I'm glad you mentioned that Kyle Busch in the running, especially in 2024, how he's, with the speed and how he's running in 2024 with RCR as a whole. Because he even said, when Ricky Stenhouse said, I'm going to wreck you at Charlotte, I'm coming for it. He goes, congrats, good. We suck right now. We suck. We're not very good. I think for Kyle Busch, he's kind of looking in the mirror like, I'm frustrated with everyone. I'm just frustrated that someone like Ricky Stenhouse is having the gall to come at me. The fact that I'm racing someone like Ricky Stenhouse on a week-to-week basis, when Kyle Busch, 2 or 3 years ago, was in the Joe Gibbs 18, competing for wins on a weekly basis, or, in the top 10. It's not a secret that RCR has taken a massive step back this year. And for Kyle Busch, who had such a hot start to start 2023 in that new tenure with RCR, it was this new Kyle Busch, reinvigorated. I'm just kind of seeing him fall into a rut as 2024 goes on. And this is just another example of how that leash is, and that frustration is just growing by the second.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail right on the head. I think, at the end of the day, Kyle Busch has to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, this type of stuff will happen if you're racing in the back. I mean, it's, we call him Ricky Stenhouse for a reason. I mean, there's a reason that, that these types of things happen. Obviously, this one's not his fault, but these are the types of things that happen when you're hanging out, in the mid 20s, or, probably even the mid teens to the, all the way back. You just kind of run into stuff like this. And, it was a shame that Kyle Busch couldn't keep the wires not crossed, but boy, oh boy, was it entertaining that the wires did cross, and that luckily there was no way for Ricky Stenhouse to leave the track, because boy, oh boy, did we get something.
Lock the doors behind him. Make this a real Coliseum event. And yeah, Ricky Stenhouse had about 200 laps there to steam for it. And, in street clothes, to see him come up and wait for Kyle Busch at the hauler, you knew that something was going down there